Items. Okay, thanks. Authorize a transfer of $55,000 from the TIF operating funds of the general fund for the 2022 contribution. I thought we were discussing making a larger payment. Buzz is going to come talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's up to you. It was literally a carryover from the last agenda, and so I thought, well, they got to do it for 2022. So if you want to do that tonight, you can, or if you want to kick it down the road, there's no urgency.
There's no sense of urgency on our part. I thought there was something.
Or you could do, if you wanted, you could just authorize the 55,000 here tonight, and then an additional transfer later this year.
Okay.
If you wanted to take that route.
Wasn't, didn't we discuss this at one of our other meetings where we was waiting for our fall installment,
Which has arrived,
which has arrived, and
but that does not impact the arrival of that deposit doesn't impact our requirement for this 55,000.
Right.
We have to pay that no matter what.
I thought we was gonna pay it all.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. We were discussing that, but Buzz was going to come and give us a kind of an overview of. Then you talk to us about how much they need, how much it impacts, how it's going to impact our borrowing in the future, or anything we need to do. I don't remember that.
We touched base on it a little bit, that he was agreeable that if we waited to pay it all in the first part of this year, and that it would help impact the bond that you're gonna get, is that right?
Yeah, the borrowing ability.
But was my impression right, as it paying off all of it, or just?
I thought that was what we were waiting on, is how much we needed to pay.
Yeah. I think that was the intent, was to try to pay it all off after you get your fall draw, which you've gotten. But it's not pressing enough that I think you could probably request those numbers and clarification for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think you said all is ideal, but if we did
Right.
as much as we were willing to do is still helpful
Sure.
because
Okay.
it brings down the balance.
Well, it's up to you guys. It would be my preference. We just pay what's required at this point. When it's pressing,
Yeah.
somebody ask us. So
Okay, I make a motion that we authorize transfer of 55,000 from the TIF to the general fund for the 2022 contribution to the Main Street Mountain Garden Trail project.
I'll second.
Aye. Okay, so that's done. Item D, consider request for Riverfront liquor license and facade repair request by Sheila and Scott Brown for 124 East Stacked, formerly Early Wine Mortuary.
All right, so I'll just tee this one up. So Sheila and Scott Brown, they're on the Zoom call, and they can go into some more detail, but they are in the process of purchasing 124 East Stat. It's a former mortuary. And they're looking to make some improvements to the property, which would include a boutique retail on the first floor and then a private club on the upper floor. And they're looking for two things, which you probably won't be able to formally approve tonight. And I'll explain some of the logistics on that. But the two things that they're looking for is a Riverfront liquor license. So that would be the first one that would, if you're inclined, would be issued by this body pursuant to that ordinance that was passed in 2020. And then secondly, they also wanted to take advantage of the newly established RDC facade repair program. So first, just to give you I'll let them go into an overview of what they're looking to do, but just logistically for the Riverfront license, this one is actually my fault. I noticed in the ordinance just recently that it says that we have to have a public hearing for it. And it's 10 days notice. So Alex, I'm assuming they would just need to do an ad in the paper, or do they need to do a mailing as well?
No, it's just general notice, which is published one time, 10 days before the public hearing.
Okay.
And then there's also a provision, Adam, you may be getting this, that they post notice at the premises as well, similar to what they'll have to do should the town decide to endorse the Riverfront permit. They then will submit their application to the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. And then part of that process, you have to post a big orange sign at the premises saying that you're going to have a local board hearing over in Greenfield on X date. And that goes up 10 days before that hearing as well. So there are the two forms of notice, one in the paper 10 days before the public hearing at the town, and then also post notice at your facility.
Okay, thanks. So Scott and Sheila and David, I'll get you that information on the newspaper advertisement for the next meeting, but we can still talk about it here, and I would advise that you do. And then the second item has to do with the facade repair. So with that, I'll defer to Mr. and Mrs. Brown if you wanted to speak about the project.
Hey, Adam, this is David Rothenberg. Can I ask one point of clarification to Alex? I'm looking at the.
Sir, can you approach?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just identify yourself and then.
Yeah, David Rothenberg, I'm the alcohol attorney with McKean Law. Alex, as I'm looking at the ordinance, I see point B says the RDC shall conduct a public hearing. Notice shall be posted minimum of 10 days. Is a newspaper posting required then according to this ordinance, or just posting at the site?
Both is the way that I read it.
Okay.
The 10 days.
Well, I'm sorry. The ordinance, you're right, David, doesn't say the public hearing has to have notice, but what is it, 531 of Indiana Code? If you're just having a general public hearing, since we called it a public hearing, you have to just do the general notice 10 days before the hearing. So that's where that comes from. You're correct. It's not in the ordinance. It's just, it comes out of state law and the general notice that we're gonna have a public hearing.
Is that published by the committee or by the permitting applicant?
Typically, the town puts notices of the public hearing in the paper, but Adam, I'll defer to you and the.
Let us know.
Yeah, consistent with how we do with the Plan Commission or BZA, we would defer that to you. We'll type up a notice.
Okay.
Get that to you.
We just.
And then real quick on that, do I need to put a public hearing notice, a sign, a town sign on the property for the February meeting, Alex, you think, or is the newspaper ad sufficient enough?
Well, we do need notice at the site. And so if we use something similar to what we do for a variance or a BZA, that would work fine. Or if you have another, I think that makes sense. No sense to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, the ordinance does specifically say that, to put that up 10 days before.
But no mailing.
Correct.
Okay.
And for the commission members and for the public as well, the state law that gives the authority to create these riverfront districts is pretty broad and general. These requirements about conducting a public hearing, having the RDC review the petitions, so on and so forth, none of that is in state law. It was what, if you'll recall, for those of you who were on the commission when we created the district a couple years back, this is just what the council and the RDC and Adam and just talking, this is kind of the structure that the town came up with that fits for Fortville. So this is the town's process that we're going through. So if you tried to open up the Indiana Code under Title 7.1 or otherwise and try to find these requirements, you really wouldn't. This is Fortville's process for reviewing requests for Riverfront District and and deciding whether or not to endorse the applicant.
So with that, you want to defer it to Scott and Sheila, or?
Yeah, we could, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yes, yes. First off, we definitely want to thank you for allowing us to present to you this evening. We live just outside of town on State Road 13. We certainly consider, Fortville our hometown. We've been, looking at, trying to, find a place for a small business going about a year now. And when Early Wine came up, we thought that would be a particularly good opportunity. So that's when we reached out to the city, talked with Adam specifically about what might need done. We put together, just a short kind of overview business plan of what we'd try and like to do with the property, having a high-end boutique on the first floor, a small events space on the second floor, and then just to maximize kind of the use of the entire square footage of the building, having basically a private members, very small social club on the third floor, which obviously with regard to that kind of prompted, our request. Sorry, we got a dog. Prompted our request for the liquor permit. And during those discussions, we also learned about, a potential facade grant. So we wanted to see if we could present something to you folks in that regard as well. Unfortunately, we haven't fully developed the rendering of the facade at this point to present to you. That is close, it is in process, but we just didn't have it for this meeting.
Okay. So you do not own the property just yet?
We do. We have purchased it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
Yes, and we've engaged Matt Dixon and his company. He's on this call as our general contractor. We've also engaged an architect out of Noblesville, out of Noble Peterson and Company out of Noblesville. So we are underway with regard to getting drawings put together and plans and such. So yes, we do own the building now.
Okay, so did you have anything else to?
Well, I just wanted to point out I wrote that letter and hopefully you had a chance to check it out, but the plan is to be able to serve alcohol in the whole building. So when you're down in the boutique shopping, maybe you get a glass of wine as you're shopping and whatnot. The second floor, when there are events, alcohol will be served up there. And then the third floor, which is, I don't know if you've been in the building or not, hopefully not many of you have. The third floor is a very small space. And as they said, they want to utilize that sort of as a private club, not a club like a dance club, but just a place where, I liken it kind of to the old time what a tavern used to be, where people get together and talk and sit around and socialize and things like that. So this permit would cover the whole building. One thing I did want to make sure that everybody understood is that, as Alex said, if you approve this, basically, we then have to apply to the ATC still. So there's a whole nother process where we have to go in front of a local board where remonstrators, if they feel the need to come before the local board and express, their concerns, they can do that, and we can address that there. What the statute does require, the state statute, is the town council or the mayor or whoever it might be to issue some type of letter endorsing the allowance to have this permit. So that's really kind of what we're presenting. I think hopefully, again, you've read through it. I've tried in my letter to answer every one of the requirements in the ordinance. I can go over that if you like, or we can go over that. I know that we've got some architectural plans that here it needs to be. Really, we can answer any questions. I think they give you a pretty good overview. There was initially some concern because if you're within 200 feet of a school or a church, I should say, you do have to get a waiver from the church. And the Browns were able to do that today. The pastor from the church across the street, they met with them, or they had a Zoom call, I guess. They said it went well, and they did sign a waiver, which was forwarded to Adam, but probably pretty late in the day. So-
We've got it.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have it.
Okay. So,
So I have a few questions, but I'm going to defer to my fellow members to proceed first with any questions for the Browns.
Mr. President, if I may.
Go ahead.
Hart Sumeyer, member of the board here. Mr. and Mrs. Brown, thank you for considering Fortville, for this undertaking. I can respect the entrepreneurial energy there. Just a quick question. This is a very unique project, right? Especially in the town of Fortville. So I was wondering what was kind of your inspiration for this idea, if there's anything similar, and maybe a surrounding county or town that kind of drew you in to have these different businesses all in the same space.
So I'll answer that. My background is in marketing, so just love different fun projects. In terms of inspiration, there are some brands that I really like that I gravitate to, and it seems like wherever I'm at, people are always asking me how and where they can get those brands. So that was kind of my inspiration for the boutique portion of this. And we'll also have home goods, other unique items that you can't necessarily get at Castleton, at the Fashion Mall, and hard to get brands online too, because these brands want to be exclusive. They want this type of atmosphere and they want a luxury experience. So it started with the boutique. And then once we identified this property, that's when it kind of grew into the event space and the private members club. We were originally looking at property right on Main Street, and we couldn't come to a deal on a buy, and we really wanted to purchase. We didn't want to lease because we knew we'd put a significant investment into the property. So once we found Early Wine and looked at the space, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. This historic, beautiful signature building. What else can we do with it? My background was in events as well. So I did event marketing for 30 some years. So then we took a look at it, the whole property, and said, how can we maximize the space? It's 7,500 square feet. So that's how we kind of evolved into the event space. And then the upstairs, once we got up there, it's just really unique. It's cool. We've got a vision for how it'll look. We'll trim it out, make it that old kind of pubby feel, wood, leather, just something different and unique that we don't have in the area. And we feel like we will pull people in with these products. In terms of the church, we did talk with them today. They're super excited. I think it'll be a good compliment for them because we can host bridal showers. We can host wedding receptions, baby showers, all those different kinds of things. So I think it'll be a good complement to what already is existing in Fortville.
Thank you. And if I can just ask one follow on, currently, members of the board, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a parking relationship between Early Wine and the town. And obviously it sounds like with, I guess, what are going to be the anticipated hours of this organization and how will that parking relationship coexist? Will it cease to exist? What are your plans with that?
Sure. And we've talked a little bit with the city about that. So the boutique is going to be open, I would say initially Monday through Saturday, and that's like a 10 to 6. I don't see that being, real high volume, high traffic. We're going to do some private appointments and things like that too. So even though it's open, it may not be open to the public every day. It may be some of those private showings. In regards to the parking, we talked to the city and we are more than happy to allow the city to continue using the lot as it's available because, we don't see it being high density unless we have an actual event on the second floor. Then we will probably be using those spots. So when it's open, we're happy to allow that. We did want to follow up on an insurance requirement. We just haven't asked there that the city would add us as an additional insured on the city policy. So if somebody is there, parking and it's not related to one of the 3 businesses we have there, that we're covered. And it sounds like that's a pretty simple process to add us as an additional insured.
Art, anything else?
Not at the moment, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any other member?
What's your experience in this type of operation? Have you done any business before?
So yes, I'll go first and then I'll let my husband answer. So I had my own event marketing company for 18 years. Before that, I was in the space. So I've been heavily involved in designing and running events all over the world. So, those were primarily for businesses. Jessica, who we're going to have come in and is actually going to serve as our general manager, was formerly with Daniel's Vineyard and ran their events there. So I feel like between my background and events, her background, and then she also has a very strong retail background. I'll let my husband talk, but between us, there's quite a bit of business experience. So we feel like we've got the right people in place and the experience ourselves to make this incredibly successful.
So you had any experience in alcohol beverage serving?
Yes, with the event experience that I have, we did serve alcohol at those events. So I do have my bartender's license myself. And at every event that we did, there was alcohol involved in those events.
And you're applying for a three-way?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, did you want to add something?
Well, I don't have a lot to add in terms of direct experience. I've never run a boutique nor a pub. My background, I own 2 construction supply distribution companies. I also started up a roll-off container business in Indianapolis a few years ago, and I'm involved in a new startup doing high-end acrylics. So I have a lot of business experience, but not a lot of direct experience that we're discussing tonight.
Ed, anything else?
Not at this time.
Amy?
I guess my question is about the private club. Kind of what is it? What does membership like that look like? Is this something that will draw in our community members, or is this something where we believe we'll be drawing in other communities into our town, or what's kind of the vision for that area?
Yeah, the space is so small. What's occupancy?
Yeah, we're looking at 30 right now. And as we get this, the build out and the plans done, we need to make sure, according to code, that we're within those guidelines. So right now we think capacity is at 30. In terms of membership, it would be similar to a country club membership. So people would have an initial pay-in to be in that club. Then there would be quarterly or monthly dues. In terms of the mix of people, we foresee it being, yes, members of the Fortville community, but maybe members from McCordsville, from the Fishers area. We're probably going to, Geist area. So, we're working on what those parameters will be, and we're finalizing budgets on the build out because we're, renovating the entire building, top to bottom. So that'll help dictate what some of those costs end up being. So we're in the process of working that out. But if you think like like I said, a country club type membership, it's structured that way.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's driven by the size of the space. It's not, yeah, go ahead, please. That's why I think they want to limit the.
Yeah, Darren Peterson, Peterson Architecture, 290 South 10th Street, Noblesville. The building code will not allow more than 30 people on the 3rd floor. It's just it's a simple math problem.
So a restaurant wouldn't work in
The
other words.
restaurant will not work in there.
Yeah. Right.
I guess for the event space, I see there are going to be 2 new patios. Do you foresee there being any issues with noise in the area? Like if we do anticipate having any bands that would be playing on these patio areas during events, or is that all indoors or anything like that?
So right now with the current plans, and Darren, feel free to jump in, on that top floor, the 3rd floor, that will open up and we'll reinforce that deck area, that there'll be some outdoor seating up there. On the 2nd floor where the event space is, if you can see, we're proposing adding a large deck there. We're looking at budget, if that's going to be enclosed or if it's going to be exposed. Ideally, we're wanting to enclose it, but again, we're still working on budgets and things like that. So if we enclose it and would have entertainment or a band for a function, I wouldn't see there being, a noise issue with that. And then if we're going to leave it open, I would say that's something that we need to work with the city on. How would that work if we wanted to do that? Could we draw a permit to have a band outside, for example?
So just a couple of points from me, and then if any of the other members want to jump back in with a follow-up, that's absolutely fine. the private club part, I understand it's a small portion of the business, but is there a basis for this membership? Like, you know, your yacht club is about people who like to boat. Your Hell's Angels are about motorcycles. So that's a wide spectrum of people. Is there a basis for this membership, or is it open to anyone, or how do we get those members?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be open to everyone, but I would like to see, you know, people that care about the community, you know, like-minded business people that want to be there to connect and, you know, help expand things. So, in talking to the pastor today, he was talking about wanting to get involved with various projects in Fortville. So I see it being, you know, some of it will be people that we already know. You know, we know people in the construction industry, we know people in the food industry, but we see being able to bring people together there as well that can help each other out in various businesses and networking.
You see that that particular portion of your business being a open, and I know this is speculation at this point, but is that an open every day to your membership, or just open on the weekends?
So, yeah, what we're looking at right now is initial, and we're going to have to see how this goes, you know, with the membership, is that space would be open Wednesday to Saturday, 1 p.m. to 12 a.m. On Sundays during football season, we would have that open. And then potentially on Mondays, Tuesdays, if somebody rented out the space on the second floor, perhaps we give them access to the third floor as an
Apologize, I
option.
didn't see that on the form earlier. And then part of our ordinance says that the business is focused on a dining and or entertainment experience rather than an alcohol-based consumption experience. What's the diversion that this is not an alcohol-based, other than, is the boutique the distraction, or other than being just alcohol related? And the reason I ask is if there's any remonstrance from this community, that's the point they're going to focus on.
Yeah, with the event space, I mean, I see that again being, and I would, you know, that is going to be dining. We'll have it catered. We just can't put the kitchen there. So we plan to partner with local restaurants to cater in. So it will be a dining experience with that as well. And a party experience, a place for meetings to be held. The upper portion of, you know, the third business, the private club, is going to be a small portion of it. And then the boutique is going to be the main business. So
is your boutique is going to be open to people having alcohol as they peruse the boutiques?
that is something where, in my experience, going to boutiques like this, you don't even charge for that. That's just something as a courtesy you could offer somebody. So yeah, that's just, hey, would you like a glass of wine as you shop, or can I get you a cup of coffee or a soft drink? Like, you know, hair salons do that very often as well.
So it's not really alcohol centric. In other words, people aren't going to go, hey, let's go, Adam, let's go over and have a drink at the old mortuary. I mean, that's not really, it's just the alcohol, as they said, is sort of ancillary to all the other things that are going on there. So.
And that's fine. We've been down this road with alcohol permits and discussions, and any remonstrance we've had in the past has always been, do we need another alcohol related business in the community? So some of the questions up front help eliminate things in the future.
And hopefully the type of businesses that they're in are going to draw people into the community, right? Events and other things like that. And really, I can see people going to the boutique and then going to one of the restaurants in Fortville. So that's kind of the key, because there's not a restaurant in the boutique. So hopefully it sort of supplements some of the other businesses in Fortville as well.
Okay. So I think we only have one or two public people. Would anyone like to ask any question? No, no public? Mr. and Mrs. Public?
Cursor, or is that Tanya?
She's got her hand up. Is that-
Oh, look at that. Tanya has her hand up.
That's the cursor.
Oh.
Oh, was it? Oh, Tanya doesn't have her hand up. Well, it's kind of neat for a minute.
Scott, if I could just make a comment on the, it was brought up about the agreement for the parking. That agreement was ended when the funeral home sold the property. So right now, currently there is not an agreement for public parking in that partnership. The sign was removed, but it sounds like the Browns, they are interested or willing to work with the town to reestablish that agreement.
Did you hear that, Mr. and Mrs. Brown? That's
Yep.
where you stand. You're comfortable with that?
Yeah, we're good. The only thing is, as Sheila mentioned, is just that the liability piece, if somebody gets run over, falls, whatever, if we can just be additional insured on the city's policy, that's it. I mean, we're fine with the rest.
As long as the communication's open, I think we're in good shape. So, in my understanding, we can't take action on this. We have to, the discussion is fine, but we're gonna have to wait till next meeting to technically vote.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I may ask one more question.
Absolutely. My name is Scott. Just so you know. Thank you for the
Yes, sir.
formality, but please, Scott.
Mr. Scott there. And looking at the agenda, it also discussed the facade repair request. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you don't have renderings for it, but we kind of skipped right over that and went to the after hour drink there. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, I'd like to hear it.
Sure. So if you're familiar with the building now, it's got the large white columns and it's kind of a lighter grayish blue color. So we really want to enhance that. So we're looking at using a few different materials on the front siding to just liven that up a little bit. So we see changing the materials potentially on the front. We are working with some different options on the columns, if we leave them the way they are, or if we wrap them in a cedar. In addition, we want to reinforce that upper level so it can be used for outdoor space. So at the very top, the round area, that's not accessible currently from the third floor. So we would open that up and make it accessible. In addition, we would add that level, and Darren, you're there, you might be able to talk through this better. We'd add another level off of the second floor that would open space up on the second floor for that event area.
Yeah, I think the strategy has always been, it's a little bit dated and it does feel like a funeral home. And so they have been very clear about the image that they want on the inside for the boutique. How do we project that onto the outside? And it's just taking a little longer. It's a complicated building. But the strategy is to keep that entrance, make it a little more modern and a little more up to date on the colors and some of the materials, simplify it a little bit inside the balcony to open up some of those spaces to the outside. And we're getting close.
Okay.
But that's the strategy in general. I don't know if I can say the word restoration hardware, but that's
the look.
That's kind of the look we're headed for.
And I apologize if I missed this, and I'm looking through my packet here. Do you have a number on that you were asking for? Was that circulated?
No, we're still in the budget process, but I think, and Matt, feel free to jump in, or the numbers that we're throwing around is for the exterior alone are probably 120 to 150,000 in total spend just on the outside. And that probably doesn't even cover enough to do that deck. It's certainly not if we're going to enclose that whole area. So we will be asking for the full amount from the city to assist in the project.
That's correct, Sheila. If I understand correctly, we're looking at a max number of 50,000, and we have to do a match for that. So we'll be well over the $100,000 mark on the facade.
Okay, now you just, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, just so you understand that the facade repair program that we established, this is the first year for it. And we set a maximum budget for the entire year at 50,000 for any projects to come in. And I have no intention of speaking for this board, but you're going to have to bear with us a little bit. If the very first application that comes in is going to drain our entire year's budget. Not that we're not willing to listen, that's absolutely not the case, but you're might have to be just a little patient with us as we work through that phase of, we gotta have renderings anyway, so we can't vote on it tonight anyhow. So just bear with us as we learn that part of our new program
Sure.
with you. So
Our intention is to make it spectacular enough that you will have no problems making that decision. So.
all right.
Yes, and Mr. Scott, that was kind of my follow-on question. Thank you for clearing that up. So, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, if this is something that, do you believe the business would be able to function without that facade overhaul? And maybe as we got into the trailing months of the year here and we still didn't have applications for the utilization of that grant, would you guys still be able to function and do what your vision is as the business without that grant right away?
I think that would make it very hard. I think it would be disruptive because we want to get everything done together. And, we talked about phasing the project. I think will hurt other aspects of the business. So right now our philosophy has been, let's get everything taken care of, get moved in, get everything done right. And wait until we can do that versus trying to piecemeal together.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
Good, all good information to know. So anybody else from the committee have any other?
I did want to add one thing on the speakeasy that's kind of the private club that's come up since we've even been talking about it. We're in Noblesville. I'm on the city council, and what we're seeing is a lot of people during COVID have given up their office space, and they end up in a coffee shop. They end up looking for space because they still got to have meetings once a week, once a month. They end up in a coffee shop, and if you're discussing things like this or real estate transactions, you're feeling a little trapped in a coffee shop. You can't talk like you'd like to. And I think this, like-minded business people is going to give people a place to go once a week, just to have meetings with or without alcohol. So I think it's great. I mean, we're seeing it in Noblesville, and it's coming because people are going to office space. I just want to add that.
Great, I appreciate it. Anything else, Mr. Johnson?
Not giving questions regarding alcohol in this particular. Again, there's a whole nother vetting process that they have to go through.
Right, and I think most of us run this committee room, the Riverfront was developed. So that's where the process of the Riverfront district was developed obviously with the council and the RDC in discussions, and it is on this committee to make the final determination of that before it goes to the county. But as we've discussed, we can't make a determination tonight, but I think we've gotten enough information that won't require everyone to be here for the next meeting. We've got all the questions answered. So we'll table that for the next meeting. Or is there any other action we need to take on tonight?
I got a question. It's not about this, but going back to the VFW and Foxtrot.
Let's get to that after.
Oh, okay.
Let's wrap this up first.
So should we plan to appear next time in case there is public and to answer questions, or what?
Probably wouldn't be a bad thing, because my suspicion is, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't mind being wrong about this, but I think once there's a little more public awareness, you're gonna have a little pushback. I hope I'm wrong. I really do, but that would be my suspicion based on previous projects. So it may not hurt for you to plan on that.
Sure.
I don't know that everybody needs to be here, but it may not hurt.
Mhm.
I would imagine Adam will have a little more input, a little more feedback, a little bit before the meeting as to if there's remonstrance prior, because that's typically what's heard as well, is some feedback before the meeting and people asking, when is the meeting? When is the meeting? We don't get a lot of public attendance here. So when people start asking when this meeting is, there's something coming.
Right.
That makes sense?
And then will it go before the actual council?
No,
So
we're in.
can I ask Alex a question?
Absolutely.
Alex, you there? Are you watching the game?
What game?
Alex, will that be, hopefully you're not a fan and not a pretty fan. Will a letter from the development committee, the redevelopment committee be enough for the commission to accept? Under
Yes.
7.1?
It will. And while this is the first of these in Fortville, I've been involved in other communities where the RDC similarly, reviews and endorses or not the applicants, and never had a problem with the ATC accepting that endorsement letter from the RDC.
Okay, great.
And Alex, correct me if I'm stating this incorrectly, but the authority for this comes through the council and us. So
That's
we're
right.
all- That the final determination is here.
Right, in most places, they require a letter from the mayor's office or the town manager or, right?
Yeah, we don't have either one of those.
Yeah.
Um,
As long as Alex has my back, I feel okay.
Well, yeah, and David and commissioners, if you haven't figured out, David and I have worked on a number of alcohol issues over the years, including when David was the executive secretary of the ATC. David, if any question ever comes up, if this moves forward and the commission endorses your client's permit, I can talk to the processor and, Chair Allen or whoever needs, and all they would have to do is lay the letter next to the ordinance that they already have, and they would see that the RDC has the delegated authority from the council. So
Great.
Shouldn't be any issue.
And the only other thing that I wanted to clarify is that in terms of procedure, so think of the RDC as they're focusing on the Riverfront liquor license, and then the concept of funding facade repair. And then the Plan Commission may have some involvement because they also function as a design review board for the town. So depending on the overall scope and change of the outside of the building, they may, it may warrant their review based on the ordinance. But if anything, the bottom line is those would be the only two public entities that would be involved. Plan Commission on the nitty gritty of the design, and then this group on grant funding and alcohol license.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Brown, thank you for attending tonight, and we'll see you next month.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, if you don't want to stay, it's a really exciting meeting if you want to.
Looking at the agenda, there's some big things coming up.
There is.
Thank you.
We will move on to item E, which is discuss 611, 613 High Street.
And you also have the other, I don't have the agenda in front of me, I'm sorry, but Ed was just asking about the other facade grants.
Well,
Is that on there?
oh, no, it's not part of the discussion, but we'll put this on hold and see what happens.
Okay.
The reason I'm asking this, we're committed on VFW and the Foxtrot first, right? So then if we have any funds left over, apply it to their request, right?
No,
No.
this is separate.
This is a separate amount. This is from
But we never got the final figures yet on the VFW.
The lead, or the VFW and the Fox Garden, those, and that's something that I intend to ask Adam about in this group. Where we're at on those numbers, but those are totally irrelevant to the facade improvement program and this project.
Well, I thought
This facade repair is done. It's gone. We're just trying to get it funded.
so these are solid figures.
Well, no, they're only solid that we've already voted on them and approved them. In a worst case scenario, this whole project could just go away if we can't get it funded because there's not enough money from the business owners and the grant. But that grant is all used up. There's no money put towards any of this from this grant. We don't have enough money to fund these two projects right now in that grant. Follow me?
Because there's the Stellar grant and then there's our new grant program that
Right.
we created. They're
So the
separate.
VFW and Foxtrot was under the Stellar.
Yeah,
Yes.
Right. Oh, I thought it was under our facade.
Oh, no,
grant.
no, no.
it's
That's
just
a,
been lingering for a long time. so.
Okay, well, that's where I'm confused.
yeah,
Could we
because
supplement the Stellar grant?
that was a 250,000 is what it started as, correct?
Yes,
The Stellar,
and then it went up to
350-ish.
350-ish, more or less. There's some consultant fees, but 350 for the Stellar grant
And that's
from
from
the state.
that's all the state. That's the VFW and Fox Gardens. That money's dedicated to those two projects.
So will our portion increase as the total price of the project increase?
It's possible, but we're hoping that won't be the case.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my point.
Well, but it's,
It's a different pot of money.
yeah, these aren't relative to this.
Okay, all right, I'm confused. Which is nothing.
Could VFW or Fox Garden come back and request money from the other grant to help pay for this, or because they already have the stellar?
That would be up to you all.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a,
So that, yes, they could.
Okay.
The other, I mean, not to make things even more confusing, but the 50,000 that you allocated for 2022 for your local facade repair program, you could always increase that if you wanted to. That's always an option, because when you get to the financials, the amount of funds that you have non-committed is about 609,000 to basically use.
but we still have two large purchases coming for the South Madison.
Right.
Those funds are not allocated in this budget yet.
And they want us
Yeah.
to pay,
Well, we can get into more detail when you get to financial.
Yeah,
I can run through it a little bit better.
Let's do that. So let's go back to the agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'll keep on that. And we'll do a little math in the budget portion of it, or in the
you need a
financial.
whiteboard.
Discuss 611, 613 High Street. What are we discussing?
Well,
Joe, you want me to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is something that Joe and I have been talking about over the last week or so. If you'll recall, this is one of the properties that we sent the uniform offer to acquire the property. The average of the two appraisals was $105,000. I think that's correct, right, Joe?
I believe that's correct.
And we are very, very near a deal with the property owners. I have a couple legal issues that I'm sorting through just to make sure that we have things papered correctly, and so that we can not have to call a special meeting or wait until next month's meeting. Joe and I thought we would very generally let the commission know, and then ask if the commission is comfortable with authorizing Scott to sign the agreement with the property owner if we work out these last two little legal issues once we have that in place, so that we can lock up the property, and that piece of property will be set for the street extension.
Did we not authorize that in our?
You authorized the offer, so if they would have accepted it, okay, but because of the way that in Joe's discussions with the property owner, there are a couple nuances that we've got to paper, and it's just a little bit, it won't be illegal if there's anything that's, you can guarantee that, but I think we're going to be able to get it done, and we would have, instead of just the property owner signing the acceptance of the uniform offer, which is more standard procedure, we would have a standalone purchase agreement that would still be the $105,000 that would address the a couple of additional requests that the property owner has raised.
Okay.
Actually, it could have been. I was a little nervous there.
Okay.
But the bottom line is we're
Close.
We're
real
close, and we just need to be able to sign it when it happens. And we're within the numbers that we had previously discussed.
Correct.
That's the major concern for our group, is that we're still on that particular property
Right.
within the tolerances of the budget we set for it.
So
Yeah.
you wanna need to make a motion to authorize Joe to sign.
No, no.
No, you, okay.
Is that right? You want me to sign it?
Yes, please.
And you said this was legal, right?
It will be. If we, there's a chance that we might have to take another path forward. If we do, then we'll discuss it at the next meeting. Either way, in February, we'll let you know where things stand. I suspect it's going to be, we've got it under contract, and and we're in really good shape. If it's something other than that, we'll let you know, and we'll go from there. But things are, Joe's done a great job talking to the property owners, explaining the process, where things are, the project, and so forth. And hopefully we'll just be able to cross the last couple T's that we need to cross to get this under contract.
Okay. So looking for a motion.
I will make a motion to give Scott authorization to sign the purchase agreement.
Is that the terminology you're looking for? Alex,
Yep.
all in favor?
I
Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you.
I could follow up with the final property. They had their registered letter sent. We just received a green card back this week. Didn't have a date on it, but they did sign it. And so I haven't heard anything back from them yet. So hopefully we'll get that one, close to getting that one buttoned up by the time we finish this.
How long do we typically give them to respond before?
Is it 30 days?
30 days after we get the green card back, or? Okay.
No, I was saying no.
It's 30 days from the date that they receive notice.
But the green card doesn't have a date on it, so we just go by the date we just got it back.
That's fine. I mean,
All right.
we calendar it for that, and if we don't get the acceptance letter back, then we have a couple years before we could take the next step if we can't get to the point with these folks that we were able to get with the 611, 613.
Okay. Any other questions for Joe or Alex on those topics? No? Are we boring?
No.
All right, try to stay away. Review of financials. Ed?
Let me just give a real quick overview.
Absolutely.
Nothing new, but so the account has about 1.764 million in it. And then your commitments that have been made over the years by various commissions for 2022, if these were all to play out on time, which of course the likelihood of that is low, but it's there, is that you may have as much as about 830,000 worth of expenditures over the course of the year. And then in terms of your income projection, we're very conservative for 2022. It was in 2021, you had about 889,000 that came in from tax collection. So for 2022, we put 900,000 as the amount. I would expect it to be higher than that, but the bottom line is that the takeaway is that the amount of expenditures that you may be making in 2022 may be more than you've done in the past and more than you'll do in future years. So just be prepared for that, because the Broadway streetscape and redesign, the 500,000 that was committed, that may be due at some point this year.
The way the state handles projects like that, once you bid the project, they bid the project. Once they bid it and they are ready to award the contract, they bill us immediately for our portion. So if we're paying 20% or 25%, they know what that number is at that point. We got 30 days to pay.
And so would you anticipate that would happen in 2022? Or do you think?
I think that part will happen this year. Yeah, they're
Okay.
supposed to go out to bid in July. And I don't see why it wouldn't be awarded this year. Construction may not start till after the first of next year. A little bit could happen this year, but yeah, if they meet their anticipated bid date in July, then they should be able to award it this year.
So the good news is that there's ample funding to do all the different priorities you've identified. There's ample revenue coming in, but just wanted to point out that there are a lot of different projects going on in 2022 that different amounts will probably be due this year. So
So just for clarification,
Mhm.
total RDC funds today, essentially,
Uh-huh.
1.7,
Correct.
with a projected additional 900 coming in this year,
Correct.
which is definitely an underestimated number because we had 889 last year.
Right.
So it's gonna go up a little bit.
Mhm.
So essentially for the upcoming year, we're looking at potentially 2.6 million total. So the 500,000 we're talking about, we're gonna have received our bigger chunk of spring deposit. So that number is certainly gonna come after spring because they haven't given on the bid yet, right?
Mhm.
So that number is gonna be north of 500,000 like it was last year. What I'm trying to get to is that a discomfort level of the number I'm looking at can be abated by the money that's coming in.
Correct.
So if we just look at that and don't look at the money coming in for this year, your non-committed funds is 609. If you take out 105 or 106 for this, the 61113, that takes us down to 503. If we are asked to pay another installment on the Main Street or just pay it off, that's after tonight, that's going to be another 230.
Well, keep in mind, you're looking at another parcel as well. And I don't think we're not talking numbers in public meeting yet, but those numbers are still out there.
Right. And
Paid
that's,
out for that additional.
so if we take out the 270 to finish off Main Street, that leaves us 230. I mean, we have not allowed the 50,000 for our stellar or our facade program out here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this says,
Because he's
There it
projecting
is,
into
okay.
2023 as well, so.
okay, so
So
we have taken that money out.
yeah, so basically, not counting revenue, because we don't know exactly what that number is. So this is very conservative. You have about 609,000 to play around with.
And that 609 takes into account everything listed under year 2022.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at is the RDC's facade repair program is already, that 50,000 is already accounted.
Correct.
So we have a true approximate 230,000 truly uncommitted, knowing that we have this other property coming up to look at. And we all know what that number is.
So the good news is that there's money available for property acquisition, infrastructure, whatever it may be.
Right. My goal there is to make sure that Mr. Brand is comfortable where we're at in our budget. Because I respect his intent with the budget, and I think it's everyone's intent, but be good stewards of our responsibility to the money. We need to understand where we're at and be very clear on it. So any other questions on the financials? No.
So the 230 would be, that's if we pay off Main Street in addition to our 55 that we already committed for the year or moved over
Yes.
earlier.
Well, yeah, that 55 is already in that number, so I just took the other. We have about 330.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you subtract about 2609, which would leave us 230
Yes,
for the year.
approximately 225 to 230. That all makes sense.
And then when do we get our first installment? Is that
That'll be
May?
in June.
June?
And Hart, jump in anytime. I know this is your first year on, so this is kind of old news for some of us. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions about anything you see on this paper so that you're up to speed with where the rest of us are. I don't want you to be in the dark about anything, okay?
Will do. I appreciate that. Thank you.
We were all deer in headlights our first year. We just did it together.
Yeah, Art, just so you're aware, Art, the source of revenue is from the tax payments that are made in the TIF. And it comes in 2 payments. So the county transfers over about half of it in June. And then the other half comes in December of a given year. And the June disbursement is typically higher than the one in December. And so if you look at the 2021 printout, you'll see what those numbers were from the Hancock County Treasurer. So just so you're aware of that, kind of how the cash flow works.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
If everyone's comfortable, I'll make a motion to approve the financial as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. We have no invoices. We have no public comment, do we? I thought that she fell asleep back there. Staff comment. Oh, I think we- All right, board comments? Well, I would like to welcome everybody back, welcome Hart back. You will enjoy this group. You're amongst a group, excluding me, of very intelligent people. I just sit back and watch it all happen. So welcome aboard. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:35.
7:34.
7:34.
I'll second
Same
it.
thing.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'm not one of the smart.
Thank you. See you, Alex.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I don't actually know how to.
Thanks, Alex.
talk.
Make sure you turn your microphone on.
You stop the recording first.
We pay 20.